We've heard from reporters, talking heads, and politicians about the Nunes memo, but what about the view from those inside Trump world? Joining me now is Newsmax CEO and Trump insider Chris Ruddy. Chris, you're in Florida. I know the president's in Florida this weekend. Have you seen him recently? What's his mood like?
Well, I bumped into him last night. We had a brief chat. I think he had an incredible home run with the bases loaded this week with that State of the Union address. The approval numbers are up. You know, Rasmussen has him at 49%. The Real Clear rolling average has him up at least 10% over the past few weeks. And the generic poll, where the Democrats were beating the Republicans by 12 points, the president has cut that in half. It's now 6 points. And I think he's riding a high with this tax cut bill, where we're seeing companies all across America increasing bonuses. Charter just came out, is giving a $15 minimum wage to every employee. So I think the president's doing some amazing stuff, and I think he's feeling it.
He is seeing increases in some of the polls, but for what it's worth, Rasmussen, we generally don't report on CNN because it doesn't call cell phones, only calls landlines, and so we don't think it's as reliable. But here's the thing, Chris, you talk about the polls. Let's look what the president said on Thursday about polls. He said this at an RNC winter meeting.
Because even the haters back there gave us good reviews on that one. It's hard for them to do. They came up with fake polls. You know, they had fake polls, but the fake polls were even good.
President just told me polls are fake, Chris. Who am I supposed to believe?
Well, you should ask him. I certainly don't speak for the president. I can only speak for Chris Ruddy.
Sure.
I do think that, everybody I'm talking to says the polls are showing the president's improving his numbers and
yeah,
his standing.
it looks like
and I think the message
I just
is
don't know
finally,
why he goes out there and lies about the polls. He knows they're real.
Well, I think he's very frustrated because, you know, like this memo that came out this week, this whole case has been about a false, fake, phony allegation of a crime. It's been about a fake allegation in search of a crime. Usually when you have an investigation, the Justice Department or whoever, you have a crime, and then that leads to an investigation of who did it.
But the Trump Tower meeting was not fake. George's meetings were not fake. Carter Page's chats with the Russians weren't fake. The Trump Tower meeting was not a, but the Trump Tower meeting was not a crime. It was not collusion. It was just a meeting to find out information. You can question whether the propriety was good. Well, we do know pretty much what's happened in that meeting, and it was not a crime. And they had a meeting. Well, see, Brian, you at CNN and all the other networks have been covering this for 18 months. Give me one piece of evidence of collusion or a crime involving the president or his associates involving their campaign. It hasn't been 18 months, and I think you're painting with a really broad brush when you say all of CNN's been doing something.
It's definitely been 18 months because we know the FBI opened the investigation based on political evidence in the middle of the campaign.
The coverage
we had an
unprecedented.
Wait. We had an unprecedented surveillance of a political campaign in American history. The House Intelligence Committee says that at least 100 members and associates of Donald Trump were surveilled and unmasked. And I think that's the big story. Why did that go on based, again, on a phony allegation in search of a crime?
Because there were very real fears that there was something very suspicious going on with Russia.
You can't base,
don't you want to know?
Just because a liberal group has a fear about a conservative candidate doesn't mean they should open up a political investigation. There's a circular illogic to everything you've been saying. You create the false allegation. The president says, hey, wait a minute. You guys are after me. This is a political witch hunt. And then you turn and say, oh, he must be obstructing justice. So there's no underlying crime of collusion.
We don't know that.
No evidence of it. And now you're accusing him of obstruction.
There was certainly evidence of a willingness to collude. I think as a lot of analysts like Jeffrey Toobin would say, yeah, there was clearly some collusion. It's a matter of how much collusion there was. There's a lot we don't know about the social media efforts and about the attempts to spread fake news by Russian bots and whether Trump aides were involved. But hey, this is the issue, right? Is there's two different narratives about what happened.
You still haven't given me any evidence of collusion. I totally agree with you.
I would love for Robert Mueller's report to come out tomorrow.
The Russian interference in that election was egregious and outrageous and a threat to our democracy. And I'm still wondering why you haven't asked
President
Barack
Trump
Obama.
to say that.
Why did Barack Obama do absolutely nothing when the Russians interfered in our election?
He did some steps. He should have done more. Fair points.
He did nothing.
I agree with you. He did a little bit. He should have done more.
Good.
I think he regrets that. Can I ask you about Robert Mueller? Because you were in the news recently for this interview you had on PBS last June. You were on PBS with Judy Woodruff. You mentioned this about Robert Mueller. Let's check it. Let's watch the tape.
I think he's considering perhaps terminating the special counsel. I think he's weighing that option.
So back then, some White House aide sort of suggested you were wrong. Then it came out recently in the New York Times that Trump did order Mueller fired, but then his lawyer threatened to quit, so he backed down. Looking back now, have you been proven right? Are you happy you were proven right?
Well, I don't know if I've proven right or wrong. I knew what the information I was saying on PBS that night was accurate. I think it was considered as an option. I can't say that the president had ordered, like the New York Times recently indicated, but I do think he was considering it an option. But look, the White House press secretary has said...
And you said it would not be a good idea. Have you changed your position that he should not fire Robert Mueller?
I don't think he should fire Robert Mueller or Rosenstein. You know, there's two ways of a president approaching an investigation like this. One is the Nixon model. You know, Nixon didn't know about the burglary. He didn't order it, yet he got involved in the investigation. He fired the prosecutor. It did not end up well for him. Reagan model, 26 indictments and plea agreements of officials. Reagan stayed completely out of it. He remained popular the whole time. My view is the president should wall himself off from this. None of the crimes that have been involved so far with Mueller involve his campaign or impact him. The president should stay away from it. If at the end of these prosecutions, the president feels some of these people have been mistreated, or the investigations have been unfair, he can always exercise a pardon, just like Elder Bush did, Bush 43 did with the commutation of Scooter Libby.
Chris, great to see you. I'd love for you to come back soon. Great to see you this morning.
Always good. And when I come back, I want the evidence of collusion.
We will look for that. And after the break here, is Putin the real winner of all this?